Hi, this is Tracy Yates, and this is another exciting episode of Reality Check Radio. And today we are going to talk about the ancient giant trees of the first Earth Age. We're talking about an age before the age that we currently exist in. I'm not talking about the flood of Noah. I'm talking about the rebellion of Lucifer and that first Earth Age. And amazingly enough, what you and I see as buttes, mesas, and plateaus around the world are actually ancient petrified tree stumps. And we've been conditioned to believe that this is some sort of volcanic activity that took place millions of years ago that nobody's ever observed and has never been recorded in all of history. But that's what the mainstream narrative and public school systems would have us believe. And the fact is that you could take a small child whose mind has not been polluted or indoctrinated, and you can ask them because they're just going to tell you what they see. They're just going to have innocent, pure minds, and they're going to tell you what they see. And you can ask them, go to a mesa or a butte and ask them, what is that? And they'll tell you it's a tree stump. Obviously, like, duh, they'll just tell you. And that's because that's what it is. They're in the first Earth age before the earth became without form and void. In God's first perfect creation, there were trees that shot up miles, up to 20 miles up into the sky. And people say, oh, that's impossible because of gravity and this and that, basing what could have happened in the first Earth age based on our environmental and conditions today and the gravity we have today, the atmosphere we have today, which wasn't the same, not even close to the same. And I can get into that and how that's changed and how it was so much different during the first Earth age, but that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about the evidence, biblical and evidence that we can actually see pertaining to these ancient giant trees. And a lot of people don't realize that there actually is biblical evidence for this. And the biblical evidence directly connects this to that first Earth age when Lucifer rebelled. And so that's why I have up here, I'm hoping, on the screen, um, Isaiah 14:8, which this is the ESV. I usually use King James Version unless there's another version that says the exact same thing, but makes it a little more clear. Otherwise, I use the King James. But if I can read the King James and I can find another translation that says the exact same thing and doesn't switch things up, but makes it a little easier to understand, then sometimes I'll go with the other translation. So when you see me using other translations, it's only because it agrees with the King James and is a little easier to understand. So this is the ESV, Isaiah 14:8. And it says, the cypress rejoice at you, the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were laid low, no woodcutter comes up against us. Okay. And so what we need to ask ourselves is, who was laid low here? We need to put a time period on this. And because the trees are rejoicing, the giant cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were laid low, no woodcutter comes up against us. So who was laid low here? And all we have to do is drop down a few verses to Isaiah 14:12 in the same chapter, and we find our answer there. And Isaiah 14:12, and this time this is the King James Version, says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, who didst weaken the nations? So we know that it was Lucifer that fell. It was him that weakened the nations of the first earth age. And he fell, and he was responsible, him and his cherubim, the cherubim that rebelled with him, were responsible for cutting these ancient megalithic trees down during that first earth age. And God put an end to that when he cast Lucifer down and the fallen angels along with him. He put an end to that. But as we see here, we have the Devil's Tower. And the Devil's Tower is one of the most famous buttes in the world. And it was seen in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where the guy was obsessed at making this Devil's Tower out of his mashed potatoes. Richard Dreyfuss, I believe it was. And the aliens ended up landing on top of this Devil's Tower. And history knows things. I mean, history gives us clues in the names of certain things, the Garden of the Gods in Colorado, Monument Valley in Arizona, the Devil's Tower. I mean, the names give us clues of what these things were and what they pertain to. And I guess, in my opinion, the Devil's Tower is the most studied of all the ancient tree stumps. And they've actually used a form of ground penetrating radar around the base of the Devil's Tower. And it's a really high tech form. It's not your typical, it's probably not even called ground penetrating radar, but I didn't bring up notes for this because this is just a short YouTube video I wanted to do to share this information with you guys. I might do a more in depth video on this in the future and actually bring up the notes and the exact type of radar they use to make these amazing discoveries. But they use some type of really advanced ground penetrating radar, and they actually found out that the Devil's Tower has a petrified root system that is 7 miles wide and approximately 4 miles deep. Okay, they can tell near the surface and however far they can get down that it's petrified and it's a root system, but somehow they can actually calculate the approximate depth and width of this root system. And so that, along with several other things about the Devil's Tower, how it actually has these the exact make of what you'd expect to get from a weathered tree stump, when you see the grains going down the side of it and the different things. It's exactly what you would expect from a weathered tree stump. And that's what they see in this thing. And there are several other examples of these around the world. We have another one here that's a lot bigger than the Devil's Tower. This one's like 2.5 miles across. You can even see the tree rings in it, and they're guessing it would have been 10 miles high, and here's another one on the left, and it's compared to what a tree stump would look like on the right, an actual wooden tree stump, and so that brings the question, and here's a few more. A double tree stump as cut off, and then there's double buttes, and they look identical on most. And it's just other comparisons around the world. And the big question that people are going to ask, number one, where have these trees gone? If they were trees, where have they gone? Number two, why are they stone today if they were wood at one time in the past, organic growing wood trees? And the answer is that Lucifer and the angels that rebelled with him had what they called the flaming swords of the cherubim. And the truth is hidden in plain sight through movies that we see in Hollywood. And this is because of a deal that these elites that fund these movies make with the fallen angels that give up this information. If you look in the Greek, angel is angelos, and it actually means messenger. Angels were created to be messengers from the Lord. That's what they were created to be. And fallen or not, they can't help but pass on this information any more than you and I can help from breathing. I mean, this is what they were created to do. However, the contract they have with these elites of the world is if they share this information with them, the elites also must pass on this information. And the last thing these elites want is for you and I to know the truth that they get, this privileged truth from these fallen angels that they summon up through seances that they have annually, such as Bohemian Grove in the Redwoods of Northern California. And this is stuff you guys can look up on your own and find out that it is true. It does happen. And so they hide the truth in plain sight and they fulfill their contract, and they hide it in plain sight, so they're sharing the information and hence fulfilling their contract. Yet they know that people won't really get what they're seeing. They know that people will walk away from the theater and think, wow, that was Star Wars, that was wild sci-fi, not realizing that the lightsabers that the rebels had in Star Wars were the same weapons that the rebels, Lucifer and his fallen angels, the other cherubim, had during the first Earth Age, a form of a plasma type sword, hence a lightsaber. The truth hidden in plain sight, the giant tree and Avatar that were fallen, equivalent, not really equivalent, well, much smaller in scale, but a comparison to the giant trees of the first Earth Age, and how they were connected at the root systems that communicated through the root systems, the same thing. That was what was going on in the first Earth Age. God's original creation was amazing. And these are things that I get into in my YouTube videos on Reality Check Radio, which obviously you know if you're here. And I get into some of those on some of my videos in the Raiders of the Unknown Ark series. But it's amazing information. And so that's why, these elites hide this information in plain sight, like I said, that we can see in some of the movies. But these these tree stumps became these trees or tree stumps became petrified during that first Earth Age, because when God ended that first Earth Age, he flooded that earth, and that's the earth of that time. And that's why when we come to our current Earth Age, that's why it all starts in Genesis 1:1, and it sums it up right there when it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, period. That's all one thought. That was the beginning. And then all of a sudden, something happened, which is all explained throughout other parts of the Bible. But that's why God asked us to study to show ourselves approved. If it was all plain and simple, there wouldn't be any reason to study. It'd be like reading a child's story, and it would be all easy, and there wouldn't be any reason for God to ask us to study to show ourselves approved, rightly dividing his word. But anyway, so he ended that first Earth Age with a flood that was greater than the flood of Noah. And it petrified these tree stumps at that time. And also pertaining to the same event, you'll notice in Isaiah 14:8, these trees are gloating or, saying to Lucifer, I'll read it again. The cypress rejoice at you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were laid low, no woodcutter comes against us. So that insinuates that some of these trees survived this first Earth Age, and they went on to exist even after the Great Flood. They went on to exist during the time of Noah. Some of them actually survived. It insinuates that. That's my theory. And my theory is based on some pretty good evidence, because when we read the book of Enoch, which is extra biblical, I realize that some people, will acknowledge it and some people won't. But even the Bible does mention it in Jude and some other places. But when we mention the book of Enoch, it actually says that the rest of these trees were cut down by God's order because the flood of Noah was coming, and the flood of Noah, by design, was designed to destroy these giant Nephilim beings and other giant flesh that was corrupted during that time period. And so God did not want a way out for these giant beings. And one of these megalithic trees that survived the rebellion of Lucifer, that survived that first Earth Age rebellion, and was still there during the time of Noah, would have allowed for a way of escape for these giants. They could have climbed it like the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. They could have climbed this one of these trees, and they could have avoided the depths of that flood. And God did not want any way out, and I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, God could have just made the flood deeper. Well, I don't think that was his intentions, because when he redesigned the world, he redesigned the atmosphere and everything else a lot different than the first Earth Age. It wasn't as expansive, and it couldn't have accommodated a flood 20 miles deep. It could accommodate a flood 6 miles deep. I mean, enough to cover some of the mountains at that time, but not enough to cover some of these megalithic trees that still remain. And who knows how many actually remained, but some survived, obviously, according to Isaiah 14:8. And because they were there to rejoice at Lucifer being cast down, saying, nobody's going to come against us since you were cast down. And these remaining trees were cut down during the time of Noah to prevent giants from climbing them and escaping God's wrath upon the earth during the time of Noah. And that is obvious when you read the book of Enoch. It literally says that. And there were a few that were hid in the nether parts of the earth, or in inner earth. And it says that in the regular Bible. I should have brought that up for the study, but it literally says that they were hidden in nether parts of the earth. And the I believe those were the trees that are critical to the next earth age, the trees that are God's going to bring back when he restores all creation, specifically the tree of life. And there may have been others, that he wanted to save, but it mentions that a few God stored in the nether parts of the earth. So, there are things that maybe I just haven't figured out yet, or maybe it's not available information. Maybe this is some of the stuff we can't know until we get to heaven and we're with the Lord. But what we do know, and what I have figured out, and I have good theories about, I want to share with you guys on my YouTube channel. And the evidence, in case you're not convinced yet, the evidence that these stumps were actually ancient trees, giant megalithic ancient trees, is overwhelming. And there is a guy on YouTube named Mr. MB333, and he, in my opinion, this guy is not even a Christian, but I'm going to optimize this for a video clip, because I'm hoping to share a video clip with you guys. But this guy, he's not a Christian as far as I know, but he does a lot of deep studies through Google Earth on the earth, on things he's found. He's made some amazing discoveries, and he's just a legit guy. He's a great guy. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, I encourage you to do that. It's a lot of fun just seeing some of the amazing discoveries he's made. But one of these things, without the insight, without the background that I'm sharing with you, he didn't have the background, of studying the Bible and knowing what Ezekiel 14:8 says, and knowing what the book of Enoch says. He didn't have this. But just by studying Google Earth, he was able to discover these giant megalithic tree stumps. And not only that, get this, the Bible specifically labels only two types of trees: cypress, which is, I believe, a type of oak, and cedar. That's it. That's it. These megalithic trees, as far as anybody ever knows, only had two variations, oak and cedar. And this guy, without knowing any of this information, biblical information, he discovers this ancient giant tree stump, and he literally figures out by looking at the 1,600-meter long leaf impressions that are fossilized around where this tree was cut down. He says these are cedars. These are cedar leaves. And as far as cedar goes, I don't even know if you call it a leaf because it's a type of needle impression, but you know what I mean. Basically the leaf off of these tree branches, and just the leaves are as tall as the Empire State Building, 1,600 meters. And this guy discovered all this without knowing any of the aforementioned stuff that I've told you guys about. I mean, it's amazing information. I'm going to try to share this,
Imagine this:
at least a
normalized blood
part
sugar levels with 2 daily
of this
droplets of this
video with
rare,
you.
exotic tincture. Shocking.
And 96 feet. That
So
one,
just maybe a
we can
couple.
set the entire city of Nashville, and you can look at the side view even on Google Earth here. We'll go side to side. There's the stump.
Now, this is the tree stump he's saying that he
4,000
found.
foot on this side over here. Go across. A little taller on this side, about 4,150 feet. It's over 8 miles wide. We look at the miles. 8.45 miles.
8.45
we
miles
can set
wide.
the entire city of Nashville and all of its suburbs right there quite comfortably. If you go to the left, which would be about the 10, 11 o'clock position,
And now he's
all
going to
over
show
this
you
area, you'll
a
find
giant,
what look like leaves and branches all over the ground.
he said what
Here's an
looked like
example of
leaves and
one here.
branches
Many,
all over
many,
the
many
ground. Here's an
examples.
example of
This one
one.
here we're going to measure real quick. And I'll show you just
He's going to measure it.
kind
I'm
of put
only
things in
voicing over this
perspective,
because I don't know
how
if the audio is
long
going to
that
come
thing
in on
is
this
compared
video.
to something that's very tall. So we'll measure from
So he's
top
measuring one of these
to bottom.
leaves, a fossilized impression of a
And
leaf
we'll
from
go in
this
feet,
fallen ancient tree.
1,596 feet.
1,596
that one
feet.
branch is taller than the Empire State Building.
So he's saying that
We showed
one
in a
leaf
video
or
earlier,
branch
right
is
there.
taller, and
I
he's
think it's the
comparing it
same
side
exact
by side,
branch that's on the
taller
ground,
than the
taller
Empire
than the
State
Empire State
Building.
Building. And there's others. There's many others. So if you
And
look
there's many
around,
others.
you'll also find many more examples of these leaves, like right here, big, huge branches. To
And
me,
then
they look like something in the cedar family.
to him, they look like something in the cedar
Obviously, this isn't
family.
a league all of its own.
Anyway, you
Now,
can
if
go
you look,
watch the entire video. I don't want to get a copyright strike on me, so you can go watch the entire video on YouTube on his channel. You know, Mr. MB333. Location of what looks like an 8-mile wide ancient tree stump, super massive, and you can watch the entire video. But I think that's amazing affirmation of the conclusions of what I've told you in this video. These things that we're looking at, the mesas, buttes, and plateaus around the world, are literally ancient petrified megalithic trees from the first Earth age. Mind-blowing. But there's a lot of other mind-blowing things from that first Earth age, including titans. And these are provable too, with even more evidence than the amazing evidence we have for these tree stumps. So I hope that's enough mind-blowing information for today. Anyway, be sure to like, subscribe, and share, because without your guys' help, there's no chance that this channel is going anywhere, because YouTube has me shadow banned like you wouldn't believe. It doesn't promote me. It doesn't push me out there unless you type in, usually, Reality Check Radio and Tracy Yates together. You're not even going to bring up my channel, because that's how heavily I'm shadow banned. Because they want to suppress the truth from the people. They don't want people to know that there was something different that doesn't actually flow with the theory of evolution that happened in our history, that we've been lied to about our history. We've been lied to about things we can literally see and relate to in our daily lives. And that's why I said sometimes the innocence of the eyes of a child knows more truth than we do, because our brains have been conditioned to see things that aren't actually the truth in history and science. So anyway, that's it for today. So be safe